The Russian Su-57E stealth fighter is currently being offered to India as part of a stopgap measure to counter delays in its domestic fighter development program. While the offer is being promoted as an opportunity for quick enhancement of fifth-generation airpower capability, a closer examination reveals a range of systemic, technical, and strategic deficiencies that raise serious concerns about the long-term value and sustainability of the platform. The Su-57 program, originally developed as Russia's response to Western fifth-generation aircraft, has experienced a history of delays, budget constraints, and underwhelming performance. Despite being conceptualized in the early 2000s, and making its maiden flight in 2010, the aircraft has failed to enter serial production at scale even by mid-2025. Fewer than 30 production aircraft have been delivered to the Russian military, an output far below initial commitments. Russia's own Air Force has not been able to deploy the platform in sufficient numbers, and operational maturity remains in question. The limited production run so far is composed largely of prototypes, flight test articles, and low-rate production models that do not reflect a fully fielded system. This poor production record is not merely a function of economic constraints. The aircraft's design itself has been the subject of persistent revision. Russia has been unable to standardize or finalize many critical subsystems. The engine remains a key weakness. The aircraft is still powered by a derivative of older fourth-generation engines, and while a next-generation engine has been in development for years, it is not yet available in large quantities or proven in operational use. Without this engine, the aircraft cannot achieve its originally promised performance benchmarks, particularly in speed, acceleration, and sustained supersonic flight. These performance gaps undermine the platform's classification as a fifth-generation fighter by modern international standards. Another concern lies in the aircraft's stealth features, which are central to its classification as a next-generation fighter. Stealth is not simply a matter of shape but also involves sophisticated radar-absorbing materials, minimal radar cross-section features, and strict tolerances in manufacturing. Independent analyses based on available imagery and open-source data have raised doubts about the Su-57's radar signature. Observers have pointed to exposed engine faces, inconsistent panel alignment, and the presence of infrared and electronic emission hotspots. These features compromise the aircraft's ability to evade detection by modern radar systems, reducing its utility in contested airspace. There is also evidence that the aircraft has a relatively high radar cross-section for a stealth fighter, which would render it more visible to advanced tracking systems. The internal systems of the Su-57 further reflect the challenges of relying on a defense industrial base that has been subject to prolonged international sanctions. Critical avionics, onboard computing systems, and electronic warfare suites are reportedly based on technologies developed over a decade ago, many of which used imported components no longer available to Russia due to export controls. Efforts to replace these components with domestic alternatives have yielded mixed results. Substituted electronics, particularly processors and integrated circuit modules, often lag in terms of processing power, heat efficiency, and software compatibility. This creates significant vulnerabilities in the aircraft's sensor fusion, threat detection, and navigation systems, especially in complex combat environments where real-time data integration is essential. Equally concerning is the lack of operational validation for the aircraft. While Russia claims to have used the Su-57 in combat roles, these reports remain unverified and are often presented without independently confirmed evidence. No independent observers or defense organizations have been able to document the aircraft performing sustained combat operations, particularly in heavily defended airspaces. The limited flight hours and exposure to real-world threat environments mean that the aircraft's performance under fire remains largely theoretical. Without extensive operational testing, it is impossible to confirm the reliability of critical systems such as radar, defensive countermeasures, or mission software. For a country making a major strategic investment, this uncertainty presents serious operational risk. The logistical and maintenance infrastructure required to support the Su-57 also poses long-term challenges. The aircraft is still new to even Russian service, meaning that spare parts, trained personnel, diagnostic equipment, and field maintenance protocols are not yet standardized or optimized. There is no precedent for a large-scale foreign support system for this platform, which makes any promises of local assembly or support particularly vulnerable to disruption. In the current geopolitical climate, with Russia under extensive international sanctions, its ability to fulfill long-term contracts is increasingly uncertain. Even routine maintenance cycles or system upgrades could face bottlenecks due to parts shortages, production constraints, or political volatility. These logistical uncertainties are not hypothetical. There is a documented history of past programs involving Russian hardware experiencing extended delivery delays, incomplete technology transfers, and poor post-sale support. Aircraft support has often relied on direct Russian involvement for critical tasks, limiting recipient nations' ability to independently maintain or upgrade the platforms. Introducing a complex fifth-generation fighter into this context, without full confidence in independent operation, exposes the user to a cycle of dependency that undercuts the strategic goal of operational autonomy. Another major concern is the cost-performance ratio. The Su-57, despite being portrayed as an affordable fifth-generation option, is still expensive by any measure. The development costs have been high, and the unit price continues to fluctuate due to Russia's economic instability and low production volume. Without a large existing fleet or stable manufacturing base, economies of scale are unlikely to be realized, which means maintenance, spares, and life cycle costs will remain elevated. The financial burden associated with acquiring and sustaining an aircraft that has yet to prove its superiority in combat raises questions about its long-term value. The strategic implications of choosing this aircraft are equally profound. While the platform may address short-term gaps, it does so at the cost of binding future defense capability development to an unstable and isolated supplier. The industrial risk of dependency on a sanctioned defense ecosystem introduces vulnerabilities not only in support but also in future upgrade paths, integration with other systems, and operational transparency. This could result in delays in fielding capabilities, limited flexibility in doctrine development, and reduced leverage in future procurement or technology partnerships. Ultimately, the decision to acquire the Su-57E must be weighed against the totality of its risks: production immaturity, unverified combat performance, limited stealth, outdated systems, uncertain logistics, and strategic dependency. These factors, taken together, suggest that the platform may not represent a sustainable or strategically sound solution to modern airpower requirements. It appears instead to be a politically expedient offering from a state facing increasing international isolation, repackaging a troubled program in the hope of securing financial and geopolitical support.